be debating the legalization of marijuana. Marijuana. It has an epic history all on its own. From the Chinese dynasties as early as 2737 BC to Jamestown in 1611, where it grew as a crop alongside tobacco, and today, where it has become illegal on a federal level and punishable by law. The legalization of marijuana is a hot topic in today's political debate. Is marijuana really all what the media and the government says it is, a threat to society and our youth? Or is it a plant capable of easing the pain of the sick and bringing ease to our stressful lives? So today we'll be discussing the pros and cons of the legalization of marijuana. From the economic standpoint, pros include less government spending and more tax revenue. Cons include government spending on addiction. From the health standpoint, pros include cures and remedies of various sicknesses. And some cons include short and long-term effects on the body and the mind. So by the end of this debate, hopefully you'll have an idea of how the decision of legalization is up to the people of the United States. Every vote counts, and hopefully you'll be able to go out one day and put that vote to use. So we will begin our debate today with Lydia's argument, where she will be discussing the economic facets of the subject. Lydia will share the economic benefits of legalizing marijuana for recreational use.
Since President Obama took office, the national debt has increased by $7.4 trillion. On January 20th, 2009, it stood at $10.6 trillion. Today it stands at almost $19 trillion. That's an increase of about 70%. The threat of a sequester has also been looming over Congress due to the blatant need for action in terms of a budget. One action that may greatly help this nation's economy would be legalizing marijuana. This could save money in law enforcement and generate significant gains through taxation. Based on a June 2005 study by Jeffrey A. Muron, who is a senior lecturer and director of undergraduate studies in the Department of Economics at Harvard University, marijuana legalization would benefit the economy in numerous multilateral ways. The Research for Muron Cost of Marijuana Prohibition Economic Analysis Study has been signed off by over 500 economists in support of his findings. In his study, he notes that legalization of marijuana may be cost-effective and save the nation billions. Muron estimates that legalizing marijuana would result in $7.7 billion less spending by the government per year towards enforcing marijuana prohibition. Out of this $7.7 billion, $5.3 billion of the savings would go towards the state and local governments, while $2.4 billion would go towards the federal government. This insinuates that many more important projects may now be funded if weed were to be legalized. The report also estimated that marijuana legalization would result in tax revenue of around $2.4 billion annually if marijuana were taxed like all other products, and even up to $6.2 billion annually if marijuana were taxed at the rates used to tax alcohol and tobacco. Rob Campea, Executive Director of Marijuana Policy Project in Washington, D.C., states, 85% of high school seniors tell government survey takers that marijuana is already easy to get, and that even conservatives are beginning to ask whether the prohibition of marijuana makes sense given all the tax revenue and economic benefits that may be gained through its legalization. In sum, marijuana legalization could save around $7.7 billion in prohibition enforcement and could generate an additional $6.2 billion annually if it were taxed like alcohol and tobacco. Budgetary impacts are not the only factor that supports the argument as to whether marijuana legalization is a desirable policy. However, these impacts should be included in any rational debate over its legalization.
Okay, thank you for your information, Lydia. Now we will move on to Heather, who will discuss the economic downfalls of the legalization of marijuana.
While there are economic benefits of legalizing marijuana, it also has its downfalls since this will cause the country to spend more money on treating addiction. Addiction specialists, according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, have explained that long-term use of marijuana leads to addiction in 10% of people. Rosalie Pakula, a senior economist at the RAND Drug Policy Research Center, mirrors this in her research, in which 1 out of 10 people developed addiction problems. However, she goes on to state that speaking only on dependency issues, 35% of people self-reported themselves as meeting this criteria in this category. Yet, legalization would not help this issue. Those who may be deterred from using marijuana because it currently is illegal will begin to use the plant. Consumption will increase, and with it the number of people who have addiction problems and dependency issues. Further, the spending on treating other drug-related addictions will also rise. A Yale University School of Medicine study showed that teenage boys who used alcohol, marijuana, and tobacco were 2 to 3 times more likely to abuse prescription pills. Marijuana abuse by itself showed the same correlation in teenage girls. Even so, the National Institute of Drug Abuse explains that many who use prescription pills often move on to heroin, since it is a cheaper form. However, the problem arises in treating all these addictions or dependency issues, which will also rise. According to Rosalie Pakula, the state pays for the vast majority of drug treatments. This cost will only rise with legalization, which will lead to more people seeking help for their dependency issues on marijuana, prescription pills, or even harder drugs. Now, I've mentioned that the cost of treating those with addictions associated with marijuana will increase, but exactly by how much? According to the Drug Policy Research Center, the average cost of treating someone who is addicted to marijuana is $575. However, this will only increase when the demand for marijuana abuse treatments rise. As demand rises, so will these prices. Overall, the economic cost is predicted to rise by $2 to $5.6 million. However, this does not count the money spent to treat those who are addicted to heroin or prescription pills, which already stands at $11 billion and is predicted to increase according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse.
Okay, Heather, thank you for your valid argument. Now that we've presented the economic pros and cons of legalizing recreational marijuana use, we'll move on to the health pro and con of the use of marijuana. So clearly there are many cons, but the benefits, in my opinion, coming from marijuana very much outweigh the cons. So if we legalize marijuana recreationally, we will only increase the accessibility of this helpful substance to the patients who really need it, instead of having to obtain a license and pay high prices at limited medical suppliers. So according to the Norm L Foundation, marijuana does help things such as pain relief, nausea, glaucoma, movement disorders, among a bunch of other things. Today, there are more than 60 health organizations that support giving patients access to marijuana for health reasons. Now, the drug is illegal for recreational use, yet there are more than 60 health organizations worldwide that support using the substance. Furthermore, America is considered as an appetite stimulant. It being such a powerful appetite stimulant helps people that are dealing with things like HIV and dementia. Now, HIV and dementia are 2 huge problems that we have in today's world, and marijuana is known to actually help it. I think that's a very important thing that we must look at. To add on to that, cannabis is known to protect the human body from tumors. It does this by cutting off the tumor's blood supply, thus killing off the growth of the disease. Tumors, which is a huge problem within cancer, it's seen everywhere around the world, and marijuana is known to help it. According to Dr. Joseph Mercola, who is actually a very famous physician and medical author, the United States should look to other countries for convincing on the health benefits of marijuana. For example, Israel uses marijuana frequently to successfully cure cancer, epilepsy, Tourette's, and a lot of other things. So if Israel is having so much success and continuing to use marijuana to alleviate these issues, I think it's time to consider legalizing recreational use for this drug. The statistics presented by the Norm L Foundation speak for themselves. 50,000 people die each year with alcohol-related substances, while 400,000 die from tobacco-related products. With marijuana, one cannot overdose and die from the substance. That, in my opinion, tells everything you need to know about the substance and how safe it is. So now that we have discussed the pros from the health standpoint of marijuana, we'll move on to Mona, who has some words on the cons of the health aspect of marijuana.
Thank you, Yanni. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, the recreational use of marijuana has many negative effects on the human mind and body. Research showed that using marijuana results in short-term memory loss, altered senses as in seeing brighter or different colors, altered sense of time, change in mood, impaired body movement, and difficulty with thinking and problem solving. Another study published in the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America showed that teenagers who smoked marijuana frequently between the ages of 18 and 38 lost an average of 8 points on their IQ, and this damage was irreversible. On the physical effects, the National Institute on Drug Abuse states that smoking marijuana results in the same lung problems as smoking tobacco. Smoking marijuana frequently results in daily cough, frequent lung illnesses, and higher risk of lung infections. Researchers also the researchers still haven't able to link if marijuana can cause lung cancer the same as tobacco does. But researchers has found that heart rate increases for up to 3 hours after smoking marijuana. This might increase risk of heart attack within the elderly and people who suffer from heart problems. The National Institute also states, and I quote, that marijuana use during pregnancy is linked to increased risk of both brain and behavioral problems in babies. If a pregnant woman uses marijuana, the drug may affect certain developing parts of the fetus's brain. Resulting challenges for the child may include problems with attention, memory, and problem solving. Additionally, some research suggests that moderate amounts of THC are exerted into the breast milk of nursing mothers. The effect on a baby's developing brain are still unknown. End quote. Finally, I would like to add that just because marijuana is less harmful than other substances that are currently legal, it does not mean that we should legalize it without seriously considering its negative effects on the human health and society. We should take our previous mistakes of legalizing harmful substances without further research as a lesson to not repeat it, rather than an excuse to flood the market with more substances that can be harmful without seriously considering the negative effects.
Thank you for your argument, Mona. That concludes our presentation of the benefits as well as the downfalls of marijuana from both an economic and a health perspective. The information that both sides presented you with today showed the complexity of the issue. While the government has many financial gains from increases with sales of marijuana, the spending on addiction treatment will increase as well. And although legalizing recreational marijuana use will enable easier access to those who actually need it, it will also put many others at risk, especially teenagers, infants, and the elderly. Hopefully, by the end of our debate, you will be given adequate information to be able to cast an informed vote when the time comes for you to actually do so. Thank you.